Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another video here on the channel. Today we are continuing my series talking about series or standalones or duologies or all of the above. Today we are talking about longer series. This was quite a tricky list to put together and it's going to be a little bit at random. Not that any of the other videos have had particularly much structure to them, but this, I'm going in without a plan. I've just grabbed things off my shelf. I've made a vague list. I've probably forgotten heaps of things because I read a lot of books that I don't have on my shelf anymore. But we're just gonna chat about series that are longer than 3 books is the current plan. And I was gonna try and limit it to finished series that are longer than 3 books, but I didn't want to, so I think what I'm going to do is a series that I am confident that you would enjoy up to a point. So, for example, I'm not including The Gutter Prayer, The Black Iron Legacy by Gareth Hanrahan, because while I think that it's a really good series, I don't know where books 4 and 5 are going to go. And do I want to say, hey, pick up this 5-book series, if you can't read book 4 and 5 yet? I don't know. Whereas there's some other things where I think either the series is not going to be finished for a really long time, so you could just start now, and we'll all be in the same boat together, or I think it is worth reading up to this point anyway, or it's going to be finished very soon. Those are kind of the absolutely no criteria that I went with. Let's do the ones that I'm currently, in my brain thinking of that I knew I was going to forget. First up is The Memoirs of Lady Trent. I talk about this series all the time. There is, no reason not to be talking about it. I don't own these. Why don't I own these? Why have I never purchased these? Actually, it's one of many books on this list where I do not own any of the books, or I only own a couple of the books, and one day I would like to spend all of my money on them. When I win the lottery, I will buy all new copies of Lady Trent. This is a fantastic series. It's written as a series of memoirs, unsurprisingly, where we have Lady Trent, a lady scholar of dragons, who goes on various adventures to various different places and gets embroiled in all sorts of schemes, all while she studies dragons. It's great, it's science, it's fantasy, it's dragons, it's more than I ever wanted anything to be ever, and if I ever need a comfort read, I will reread them. This has 5 books, 1 companion novel, which is based on her granddaughter, and 1 short story that you can read that is very enjoyable, and I recommend all of them. They are fantastic. I think this is one of those series where all the books are very different, and I think my favourite personally is Within the Sanctuary of Wings, which I think is book 5. I love it personally, it's great. One day I will get around to making a full actual review video for that series, but I feel like I mention it in so many videos that it's probably, I could just collect snippets from around my channel and put together a video with very little effort. Maybe. And the other one that I knew I was going to forget is a series that has just had a video go up on my channel, I think. Certainly within the last couple of months. This is the 9 Realms series by Sarah Kozloff. This is a cinematic, epic, big fantasy series across 4 books that is designed to be read all in one go. It is very good fun. It's pretty generic fantasy, but if you want that 4-book, really chunky, long, extensive narrative, but it's very close together. There may be time jumps within it, but it all feels very packed in, whereas some of the books on this list, there's been quite a big gap between all of them. They feel like very different books. This is like handing someone one 2,000-page book and just giving them the option to stop every 400 or 500 pages or so. I personally really like that. This wouldn't be for everyone, but it is a good time, and you can go watch that video if you'd like to hear more of my thoughts on my complicated feelings towards the marketing techniques used in that book. Not in the book, for the book. This coffee is fueling me. Let's keep going. I think those were all the things I wanted to mention that I'd kind of forgotten to grab. I think we'll be okay. Oh, where do I begin? I'm just going to grab from the stack. It doesn't need to be in a coherent order. If it did, I could edit it that way in the future. We're pulling ourselves together. Chorus of Dragons. I have a video up that is why you should read the Chorus of Dragons that is just talking about the first 3 books. So The Ruin of Kings, The Name of All Things, and the other one. The third one. What's it called? Sorry, the wind is intense up here. It's something, and it will come back to me. I can't even tell you what the cover looks like at the moment. My brain's just gone horribly wrong. But the 5th book, The Discord of Gods, is out this year, and I'm so excited for it. This is very chunky, fantasy, with this really interesting narrative structures of each of the books. Some people might find that really annoying or really slow. I personally found it very exciting and fresh and enjoyable. Very, very gay, very, very open to ideas about things is probably the broadest way of putting it, and this is such an intensely rereadable series. I've reread it every single time a new book has come out, so Ruin of Kings is really stuck by me. I, unfortunately, think that The Ruin of Kings is the worst book in the series, which is so annoying when it is the first book, and there are a few other instances of that on this list. So, my suggestion with this, power through book one. You just get through it, you don't really need to understand what's going on in book one. You can just fill in the blanks when you get to the other books. For me personally, I think book two is probably my favourite so far, but I do have a reread for this series coming up, so if you would like to read this for the first time as a reread, for just fun, then come and hang out with me. I can't tell you when I'm starting it, but it's in a few weeks, I think, because I want to read all of these before the Discord of Gods comes out. Yay! I don't know if I said enough about that to sell it to you. It's fine. I'm going to slot this in the middle so it doesn't feel like a big deal. The Inheritance Cycle. Bear with me. If you are a big fantasy fan, odds are you have heard of this series and you are either going, oh yes, I also read that, or rolling your eyes horrifically. Do I think this is the best thing since sliced bread? Do I think this is a fantasy series that absolutely everyone needs to read and it is untouchable and definitely doesn't plagiarise? No, I don't think those things. In fact, I think this is like super generic fantasy, but I couldn't leave it off this list. My little teenage heart would not let me, because this was the series that got me properly into fantasy reading. And it's one of the things that actually brought me back in doing a reread of this series, because while, yes, it is cheesy generic and steals a lot of things from other people, sometimes you just want that. And when it's your first thing, like this is such a well-thumbed copy. Look at how destroyed the back cover of this paperback is. It's horrible. I'm pretty sure there's hair dye on it. It's lived a life with me. And the main reason I'm talking about this now is that this is the first instance I can remember of reading a series that was more than 3 books. And I remember that because I was reading the third one, Brissinger, and I was very excited. I was like, so excited to finish this series because I wasn't on bookish internet at that point. I didn't know that it had been turned into a quartet. I did not know. Nobody had told me. No one had informed me of this fact. So it wasn't until I got to the final page of Brissinger and it said, this is going to continue in the next book. I was so angry. I didn't mind. Getting another book was very exciting to me at the time, but simultaneously I just felt betrayed. And since then, whenever a book betrays me in such a way and reveals that there is in fact a sequel when I thought I was at the end, I remember this series. I think about it. And this is just the lesson to publishers to tell me specifically, like this isn't a general lesson, but just contact me and say, hey Judith, just so you know, Black Iron Legacy is actually 5 books. That's all I want. But do tell me, what is your, in hindsight, this is either like slightly problematic or I don't know what the word is, like you wouldn't necessarily feel the same way about it if you read it for the first time now. What is that book for you? Let me know. A palate cleanser. Let's talk about Becky Chambers. This is The Galaxy and the Ground Within. This is actually about to come out in paperback, so if you've been waiting for that, this is your notice that you can probably get it in paperback now. This is the 4th book in the Wayfarers series by Becky Chambers. It is a 4-book series, and this is on this list because we have 4 very different stories. There are characters who feature across the different stories. There are relationships between the books, but they are 4 completely separate narratives. And I absolutely love this series. I think it's fantastic. I need to do a reread of it this year because I don't think I managed to in 2021. I don't think I managed to get a reread in, and I would like to this year. I'd really like to. But if you want queer sci-fi that is just like so sort of slice of life and gentle and at the same time emotionally destroying and wonderful, this is a series I would go for. If you've ever thought about how a lizard would have sex with a lady, this is the series for you. Sidebar, I recommended this book to my grandmother. I'd forgotten that scene happened in A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, and she hasn't ever brought it up to me again. So, you're welcome, Granny. Tamara Pierce, if you are looking for some shorter, middle grade YA, varies depending on the book, probably more YA. Tamara Pierce has written a wonderful set of series in the world Tortle, I'm not sure. And there are a few of them. I've not read them all yet, which is why I'm a bit wary of including this on this list. And I know Asha's watching this and she's like, ugh, Judith, you cringe. And I say that because Asha is like the ultimate Tamara Pierce fan. She loves her. And I owe it all to her for recommending these books to me. But if you want girls in a fantasy setting doing amazing things, and there's different kinds of them. There's like a lady knight. We have in this series, we have another lady becoming a knight in a different context. There's a mage who can speak to animals in another series. They're just wonderful. Again, I would really like to own them all. I only own this series, which is The Protector of the Small, I think. Yes, Protector of the Small. But I have read Alana, Song of the Lioness, and Wild Magic. Those ones. And I have the Becca Cooper ones on deck to be read at some point. They are behind me. I don't know where they've gone. They'll turn up when I need them. But if you are looking for that kind of vibe, I highly recommend these. And that is another really good example of sets of series that intersect, which is one of my favourite things, because I really like seeing characters, especially characters who you see as children, who like go through a full narrative and then maybe you just pick up on like a little bit of their life now in a later series. Oh, it's my favourite thing. And an author who does that very well is Robin Hobb. You knew she was going to be on this list, partly because I told you she was going to be in a previous video. Robin Hobb has written the Realm of the Elderlings series, and it is a big sprawling, I can't remember exactly how many books it is, but it's a fair few books set into different series. So we have the Farseer trilogy, Fitz and the Fool, Live Ships, Rainwild's trilogy, and... is that all of them? Oh no, I'm going to have to cut this out because I can't remember. Have they put this in the front of this book like in a really kind way? Yes! Oh, they have. So, we have the Farseer trilogy, which is this one. The Live Ships Traders. This is my slightly vintage, I picked it up in a charity shop cover of Live Ships. We have the Tawny Man series. I haven't read Soldier Sun, so I'm not talking about it. The Rainwild's Chronicles, which is my personal favourite. And in this instance, you sort of... the best order to read them in is probably publication order. But realistically, a lot of people start with Assassin's Apprentice and the Farseer trilogy, and if you don't love Fitz, which I personally did not, you can kind of go, well, I don't really care about that main character, so I'm gonna get gone. Especially Fitz in this series. He's very young. He makes less than amazing choices. But my recommendation is, if you did pick this up and you were like, okay, try Live Ships. Try Live Ships, see if you like it more. I personally did. And then you can go back and read this. And will you miss things? I would have known that maybe that person's motives were different to how I thought they were. You might. But I'm of the opinion, if it gets you into the series, it gets you into the series. And we should not gatekeep in that way. I really like these really emotionally driven fantasy. I've cried more at this series than I have at, I think, any other book series. In fact, sometimes I just think about the finale of this series and I just cry. And we're not going to get into that right now because it's personal emotions. But it would be so remiss to leave that off this list. I'm so glad that I finally finished Robin Hobb last year. It is another series where I would really like to own all of them, and also I would really like to have the time to reread them, but it is quite an endeavour to do so. So maybe in the future. Let's talk about some YA. Spellslinger. This is actually book 4. I do not own book 1, 2, 3, 5... or any of the prequels, but this is by Sebastien de Castell. This is about a boy, Kellen, who is a pretty useless mage, and the adventures that he goes on after being sort of sent away, running away from his family. It's complicated, and there's a lot of quite dark themes about processing the negative things about your childhood in this series. But broadly speaking, this is a very humorous, fun, it's called Spellslinger, so you're getting that, like, it's sort of cowboys, western stuff, but with fantasy magic involved, spells. It's good time. I really like the series. I have a full review up for the entire series, and I think maybe just the first prequel, but I have now read the second prequel and it was pretty good. But you don't need to read the prequels. Start with book 1. Live your best life. Personally, for me, book 4 is my favourite, though I do know for someone else that book 4 was their absolute least favourite. So I'd be very interested to know, if you have read this series, what your favourites were. That's kind of my example of a series that very much could have just done one thing the entire time, and actually does shake things up quite a lot throughout the books. And I think that's part of why some people get on with more books than others, because it depends what elements have been added in or taken away. It's very fascinating. I would watch my review for more thoughts. Brandon Sanderson, The Cosmere. It's a big, sprawling, multi-universe series which has different series within it, and then lots of people who are very into it draw a lot of connections between them. I personally didn't know that was a thing until I started watching Angela's videos. So that's my confession to you there. I think I'd read Mistborn Era 1, which this is the third book of. I do not own the first book. I make no apologies for who I am as a book collector. I really like Brandon Sanderson a lot of the time. There are some things that he's written that I was less sold on / hated, including the Steelheart series. Oh boy, that was terrible. But I really like Mistborn, and I think one of the things I would really like to do is sort of start fresh with the Cosmere, and that sounds like a big thing. I'm going to put that down because my arms are stressed and I need to waft them as I talk about this. Because I think I read Elantris and then I read Warbreaker, and then I read Mistborn, and then I've read like bits and pieces here and there. And what I would really like to do is just sort of find a starting point and go, because as much as I'd really like to finish Stormlight, and I'd really like to pick up the short stories, and I'd really like to dart about everywhere, reading all the things, I just want to go, I get what Brandon Sanderson was trying to do now, and I understand a lot more about like his themes and ideas, and I've read a lot more adult epic fantasy stuff since then. I think it might be time for another big project. I think that might happen from like June onwards, maybe? But the more I talk about it, the more that feels right. Because also there is another Mistborn book coming out in the autumn, I believe, and I would like to read that. So, getting back up to date with the Skyward series, and then I will try and get my head around Brandon Sanderson again. It will happen. One of the final books we're going to talk about, The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. This is an unfinished series where we will be waiting a very long time for the last books in the series. This is a 7-book series, I believe, and we are on book 4 has just, well, not just come out, within the last 2 years has come out, and I think we're waiting till 2020, I'd say 2023, surely not 2024 for book 5. But Samantha Shannon writes fairly slowly as a person. That's just sort of how she is. But this is a really interesting series, I think, for seeing how a writer can develop, because this first book, it's sort of very typical YA of its time, I think, and also very typical of somebody who went to Oxford and liked it there. In my opinion, it's very like, ooh, Oxford, and I'm kind of like, maybe, okay. So it's sort of dystopian. We have these characters who are voyants who, in various ways, see through to the spirit world. There's different powers. It's a good time, except it's not a good time for them because they are persecuted by society. And in this first book, Paige, our main character, gets taken to a, how much can I talk about without spoiling it? A facility, and things go very badly for her. Now, if you don't want to see your main character be beaten into a pulp emotionally and physically in every single book, this isn't going to be a series for you. But I personally think that it is getting better, and it's fascinating. One of the big selling points of the series is Samantha Shannon got the deal, a 7-book series deal, very, very young. And make of that what you will. Wonderful for her. Do we praise youth too much in society? Probably. But I'm really loving seeing how the things that Samantha Shannon wants to write about and the way that Samantha Shannon writes is really changing, I think, for the better and growing and developing as the series goes on. So I think that's one of the things I'm finding really fascinating about this series in particular. I think a lot of people aren't going to like it just for the characters and the setting ideas. If you're not into it, you're not into it. But I would say if you read The Bone Season and you kind of meh on it, the second book, The Mime Order, is much better. And in my opinion, they are just growing in how good they are. The Mask Falling was really well written. The last series I want to talk about, which I've honestly just remembered that I wanted to talk about, so yay me, is the Edge Chronicles. This is my ultimate nostalgic child series, and I mentioned Inheritance being the series that got me into big epic fantasy, but I think Edge Chronicles was the first series I read where I got really into drawing the connections between the different series, because similar to Robin Hobb, similar to some other things, we have these big intergenerational stories where you only realise halfway down through another series that you're actually dealing with the grandchild of another series and following these different ages of flight. And if you haven't ever read them, I highly recommend them. Even as an adult, they are fantastic. A lot of my imagination was really fueled by them as a series and by the illustrations, which are just fantastic. I haven't read all of them because some of them came out when I was an adult and I've never got round to it because I kind of am scared to in case I don't like them or I discover things that I don't like, and that's very nerve-wracking. And at one point I will do a full reread and I will polish off that series. In fact, I will add it to my series tracker after I finish this video, because I would like to have read them all. Oh, I should probably also talk about Percy Jackson, but I've not read all of them yet. The Rick Riordan ones. I've just not read all of them. So there's a fair amount of middle grade long series, shall we say, that I've not got to, and maybe I never will. And maybe I'll never finish all of these series. Maybe Bone Season 7 will come out and I will be gone and in the earth. Who knows? I'm a bit torn on longer series because there is that buy-in of you're committing to waiting for books for a very long time, in most cases, at least a few years. And in some ways, that's very exciting, and you get to have this series be a huge part of your life. I know a lot of people who Robin Hobb's publishing schedule of Realm of the Elderlings was a huge part of their, adolescence into adulthood, and that's wonderful. I lost my point. I completely lost my point. I personally come down on, so long as each book ends well in a big epic series of that kind, I am quite happy to wait around. Would I like to have them all at once? Absolutely, yes I would. Thank you very much. But I am quite happily waiting for Bone Season 7, unless I am dead by then. What series have I missed? I genuinely don't know. I've probably already thought of 10 by the time I'm editing this. Who knows? If you've got any big, chunky, epic series recommendations, plonk them down in the comments below. Should I read The Expanse? I keep looking at them in bookshops and being like, are you for me? I don't think you are for me, but maybe. While you're down there commenting, if you haven't already, please subscribe for more chaotic content like this. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. Follow me on social media. Come hang out on Discord where we can have wonderful chats about books. Yay! Nothing makes me feel more loved and appreciated than my patrons, who I love as much as I love a big chunky epic fantasy series. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you'd like to join their number, that info's all in the description. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. There's gonna be some bloopers now. Ba-da-ba-ba, ba-da-ba-ba. This wind, my word. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba, ba-da-ba-ba-ba.